Welcome back, you beautiful football fanatics. This is the NFL, where the best athletes on planet Earth put their skills and those egos on display. From game-winning touchdowns to newfound playoff success to the record-breaking performances we've had from Lamar, Bowers, and Kelsey, we have the moments that make your empty bank account and your mad spouse not look so bad. I'm Mad Max, your go-to gorilla for all things gridiron. We're here to dissect the chaos, the glory, and everything in between from this year's NFL regular season. Spoiler alert, the refs still suck, the Chiefs are still winning, and yes, the Giants finally said goodbye to Daniel Jones. Buckle up, because there's a whole lot more to unpack right here, right now, on Banana Gorilla Football. This is a brand new channel on YouTube, so if you are into top tier NFL analysis with a side of humor, and you want fresh content dropped every week into your feed, please do me a favor, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment. Your support is what keeps this circus going strong. I appreciate every last one of you. Let's get into the madness. When the Ravens signed Derrick Henry, I and others had visions of rushing dominance dancing in my head, and those visions have become a reality. Henry's been nothing short of a titan on the field, 1,800 yards, 16 touchdowns, making defenses look like they've never even tackled a running back before. And that's before we get to the main event. Lamar Jackson doing what he does best. Running, winning games, making defenders look like they're skating on ice, breaking ankles, sprinting to the annals of NFL history. For the 2024 season, Jackson's stats are nothing short of spectacular. He's thrown for almost 4,000 yards, completing at nearly 68%, 43 total touchdowns, and only 4 interceptions, giving him a 121.6 passer rating on the ground, 852 rushing yards at 6.6 yards per carry. When we look back at his MVP seasons, we might be looking at a Lamar that's in his best form yet. In 2019, he had 3,100 passing yards, 36 touchdowns. 2023, 3,600 yards, 24 touchdowns. I will say in 2019, he did rush for 1,200 yards, but when we look at his campaign this year, I think Lamar's going to be collecting his 3rd MVP trophy, joining the likes of Peyton Manning and the GOAT, Tom Brady. Lamar on Christmas was the gift that just keeps on giving. Game the Ravens crushed the Texans 31-2, where the only points they had was a sack. Oh my, CJ, what's happened? Jackson and Henry combined 251 yards, showcasing their dominance. But in this game, Jackson also eclipsed Michael Vick's all-time rushing record for quarterbacks. He did it in just 7 seasons. Compared to Vick's 13, 6,110 yards, and he's got a game to go. Vick himself acknowledged this feat, saying, "Man, watching Lamar out there, it's like looking in a mirror, only better. He's taking what I did, elevated it to a whole nother level." I think Vick is being generous. I'm sure he would have loved to hold on to his record, but that's what happens to records, they break. Last year in the playoffs, after averaging nearly 30 points, 28.4 in the regular season in 2023, Baltimore came into the playoffs against the Chiefs and put up a paltry 10 points against a Chiefs defense that did rank 2nd, so they were a good defense, but Lamar had a challenging game. Almost half his passes were incomplete, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He lost a fumble. His mobility somewhat limited. The team just did not look like itself, and they left the playoffs quickly. Potential for this year, with this rushing attack ranking number 1 in the league at 210 yards per game, they're positioned for a good run in the playoffs. When you control the ball and you control the clock, you can control the other team. If their defense can somehow stop the pass even a bit, they got a good chance. Now, Mahomes and Kansas City, they're the best, so it will take a Herculean effort, but Lamar, 3-time possible MVP, he might be able to do it. When we look at their weaknesses, a lot of times, as I mentioned, we look at their passing defense, multiple games where they've been torched. CJ Stroud throwing for 475 touchdowns in week 9. Mahomes, who they may face again in the playoff, 378, 4 touchdowns. I mean, it was week after week. If you're a gambler and you were on FanDuel, it basically was bet the receiver going against Baltimore. In the second half of the season, they did get better, averaging 215 instead of 250 yards per game, but it is still a vulnerability that they're going to have to look at in the playoffs. Lamar isn't just leading, he is sprinting into the conversation for all-time greatness. This could be his third MVP in 7 years. That is just mind-blowing. But I will say, as great as those MVPs are, these boys come for trophies. Dan Marino, the greatest to never win a bowl, I'm sure he would trade his MVP and his closet full of diet pills for a chance to lift the Lombardi. While running for MVPs is great, true greatness is often measured by how many Lombardi trophies you can stack up. If Jackson can lead the Ravens to a Super Bowl, maybe this year, maybe next, maybe beyond, breaking Mike's record, blessing. But if you were to ask Lamar, he's got his eye on bigger goals. And come January, the opponents, they're not going to just be facing Lamar. They're against a backfield that is a cheat code. Baltimore can carry this momentum into January. The AFC should be very, very worried. Number 2, Jayden Daniels sparks rookie QB revival. The last time the Commanders felt this kind of buzz, back in 2012 with Robert Griffin. But JD, he's bringing a whole new level of excitement to Washington. This rookie season, Daniels has had 4,394 yards, 31 total touchdowns against 7 interceptions, and he's completing almost 70% of his passes. He's not just playing, he is setting the field on fire. Hail Mary win against the Bears. I think Caleb's still questioning his life choices. 5 touchdown barrage against the Eagles, which kind of put his star on the map. Daniels has elevated the Commanders to 4th in the league in points, much better than last season, 28.8. They're 5th in total yards at 386. And he broke the QB rushing rookie record, leaving RG3's 2012 mark in the dust with 843 yards of his own. There's still a game to play. Commanders coach Eric Bieniemy praised Daniels, stating, "I haven't seen a rookie quarterback with this level of poise in a long time. Jayden Daniels, he has something special. You can't coach that." But it has not been all highlight reels. Daniels, he did hit a rookie rough patch midseason, particularly against the Browns. He went 18 for 33, 197 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks in a 30-13 loss. Critics were quick to wonder after this game if defenses had figured him out, but Daniels, true to form, he did bounce back with a vengeance. He proved his resilience, his adaptability, and this dates back to LSU. His last year being a dual threat, he dominated the college landscape, and it has translated beautifully to the NFL. And since a slow start, Terry McLaurin has been on fire too. 85 catches, 1,100 yards, 9 touchdowns from week 4 onwards. He truly is a big part of this offense. And McLaurin himself called Daniels the most exciting player I've ever shared the field with. He's a leader, and he's just getting started. Last year in the regular season, the Commanders, they sucked. They had Sam Howell, who threw almost 4,000 yards, but he had 21 interceptions to go with 21 touchdowns. If you turn the ball over that much, you are going to lose. And the team did. They finished 4-13. However, there was a lot of offseason change, new ownership. Josh Harris has been saying the right things, seems to be building the right culture, better facilities. The atmosphere, which once had frustration and embarrassment, now moves over to cautious optimism, a focus on rebuilding, fostering a winning mentality. With Daniels leading the charge, I think the Commanders have a real shot to win a playoff game. I don't think they're winning a Super Bowl this year. They have an improved record, but they've shown they can compete with the best. They do rank 31st, allowing almost 150 running yards a game. I mean, my man Zeke, he popped off for 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. Barkley, in his MVP campaign, had 3 tutties, 156 yards. And additionally, their pass defense, it's been shit too at times, particularly in that second half, allowing 240 yards. So between that and the run, there's an issue. If Washington can shore up that defense, couple free agents, couple draft picks, keep on nurturing Daniels' growth, make sure he's got the weapons in place, good protection, this team could morph into a powerhouse. He isn't a flash in the pan. He is a spark that could ignite this franchise. And with the new ownership, with the new vibe, and with this new leader, the Commanders fans have something to be happy about. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. It is the NFL, and you are only as good as your last game. For Washington, every down's going to be an opportunity to prove how good they are. The problem, though, with Jayden and other small quarterbacks is, yes, they can protect themselves most times, but when the game's on the line, when a 4th down is on the line, and they have to go for it, those little bodies take a beating. So we'll see. We will see. Washington does look promising. Alright, Kansas City remained the kings in the NFL. They locked up the AFC's #1 seed again because, of course, they did, to all of our dismay. Despite injuries and whispers about that window closing, the Chiefs, they continue to dominate like it was an addiction, a habit they just cannot break, and we're all here to hate it. Kelce casually broke the Chiefs franchise all-time record for touchdowns, 82, helped erase some of the memories of his down year. He had 823 yards, 3 TDs. This continues a downward trend for Kelce, who's had his yards and his touchdowns drop in each of the last 2 years. We'll keep an eye on that. He is getting older, but he is also still a Hall of Fame tight end and a great target for Mahomes. And speaking of targets, the Chiefs, they kind of went from famine to full-blown buffet. Maybe a Vegas buffet, but better nonetheless. This year, their offense ranked 11th in the league with 24.1 points. They had 342 yards a game, putting them at 13th. All of this a testament to Andy Reid's coaching prowess. He's been with the Chiefs for 12 of his 26 seasons in the league. Reid is set to become the winningest coach in NFL history, passing the great Don Shula and his record of 347. Reid sits at 284 wins. That does include his playoff wins, so he's 63 games shy, 4 or 5 seasons, and he should be able to attain that record. And playoff wins, he also has 22, which by the end of this dynasty will be at about 40 or 50 when they all wrap it up. With Bill down in Duke, it looks like Andy is going to nab this record. And while Bill may be unhappy with that, he's going back to relive his college glory with a college girlfriend to boot. Go Blue Devils. Defensively, the mastermind behind this unit, Steve Spagnuolo, he's a legend in the game, multiple rings as a coordinator. His strategic game plans turn the Chiefs defense into a force. Chris Jones, 15.5 sacks. Nick Bolton, 106 tackles. Trent McDuffie was ranked the second best cornerback by PFF. They rank 4th in yards against at 310, and they were second in the entire league with 18 points a game. Spags has this unit locked in as we head into the playoffs. Yes, they let a little bit of yards. Still, they were tops in the league, but when it came to points, it was near impossible to score on the Kansas City Chiefs. The result, Chiefs, they've lost one game all year. And that was earlier against the Buffalo Bills, and they controlled that game. Funny enough, though, the Bills 2 weeks later get crushed by LA, and then they beat Detroit the week after that. So it is the NFL. Any given Sunday, you have to bring your all. Clearly, against the Bills, they didn't. I will say, being that they've only lost one game all year, this is the earliest that they have clinched a playoff bye in Mahomes' career. Him, Kelce, a couple of the other older guys will be able to recover this last week of the regular season as they head into the playoffs looking to win their 4th Super Bowl in frigging 8 years. Tom Brady collectors, and I know a few, they must be sweating bullets right now if you have that expensive card. Hopefully not the 1 million. It's time to start asking some questions about where Mahomes may rank all time. For me, I am not sweating too much. I do own a signed Tom Brady football, but it's 1 championship short when he signed it, and it's probably fake. Last year, Mahomes was out there playing with a group of receivers that honestly sometimes made me go to ESPN and see if these guys were even in the league. This year, they got Hopkins, Hollywood Brown, rookie sensation, Xavier Worthy. They joined Kelce and that bum Juju. They went from digging through the clearance rack to strolling what seems like Gucci on payday. Mahomes finished with about 4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns. Not a huge season, but it was enough to win those 14 games. Mahomes himself admitted, it is a different vibe this year. We've got weapons everywhere. I can go deep, I can go short, or I can hand the ball off to Pacheco and let him take care of business. It is fun football. Last year in the playoffs, the Kansas City Chiefs had a remarkable run, a Lombardi trophy. The AFC wildcard game against the Dolphins, threw almost 300 yards and a touchdown. Easy 26-7 victory. They then took out the Bills, a very close game, 27-24. And then in the AFC Championship game against the Ravens, the defense stepped up, a 17-10 win, and I think that's something we might be looking at this year. That all culminated in a Super Bowl win against the San Francisco 49ers. Mahomes had a pretty good game, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, including the score in overtime. I think we all remember the call, the ref's call, and they're the first team since the 03-04 Patriots to win consecutive Super Bowls, so they are going for a three-peat this year. A testament to Mahomes' leadership, his adaptability, and the collective collective strength of the Kansas City Chiefs. This year, the Chiefs, they do head into the playoffs with some areas that could propel them to success. They do have a decent red zone efficiency, middle of the pack, but that's good. It's not near the bottom. +3 turnover differential. It's rare to see teams that don't have a good turnover balance in the playoffs anyway. I think if they were to have success, we're going to need a strong running game. Health will be a key contributor. Can all these older guys stay healthy? I think that leads into the extra bye week. They'll have a little bit more time to make a strategy to heal those wounds. They may not be popping off in every stat, but the tactical advantage they have with Mahomes, with Reed, with all those good players, you combine that, and that's a formidable team, as we have seen time and time again. There are a few areas of concern. We've seen them lose that game against Buffalo. They have had a few teams rush against them. Mahomes has been sacked. They need to keep him upright. That'll lead to the health. And also, as I mentioned, Kelce, he's been slowing down. So if a team was to shut down Hopkins and shut down Kelce, will Kansas City be able to win with Pacheco, Worthy, and Hollywood? We'll see in the playoffs. My take, they're going to win a 4th Super Bowl. There is not a more iconic duo in the NFL than the Chiefs and the Zebras. Whether it's that holding call or Mahomes limping after that roughing the passer only to throw a 50-yard touchdown 2 plays later, that is how the story goes. Unless Lamar, the Ravens, Allen, and the Bills can get their friggin' act together, Mahomes will lift his 4th Lombardi. We'll all be stuck watching Taylor Swift perform at the Kelce-led after party while we all cry into our beers. My friends, cheers to another decade of Chiefs domination. Let's get comfortable. They're not going anywhere. We'll most likely always go through Kansas City. Next up, we have the league's weekly dumpster fire known as Thursday Night Football. This all came to a head once again with a 6-3 explosion from the Seahawks and Bears, a game so bad it was crowned the worst NFL game, at least since the last worst NFL game on Thursday. Twitter exploded with the memes and the jokes. Thursday Night Football stinks, and I know that's not a top story, that's not breaking news, but it has to be said. This has been an ongoing problem for years. Even the great John Madden called it out in 2016, saying football wasn't made for Thursdays. Countless players have made the same sentiment over the years. Dangers of playing on short recovery times. NFL writer Steven Ruiz penned a now famous 2017 article breaking down why it was so bad, why the play was so sloppy, why there were so many injuries. Here's the thing. The NFL knows it's bad. Amazon kind of knows it's bad. No one really cares. Thursday Night Football is a $1 billion machine. Amazon's a $1 billion company, and they paid for the rights to stream those games. In this day and age, with television, there's not a lot of properties which command huge amounts, and with the NFL and live advertising, they can do that. So as long as the money keeps rolling in, the quality of the games, it probably isn't going to improve. Going back to that Seahawks, 2 teams fresh off Sunday games, they put on a performance so devoid of offense, I felt like I was watching scrimmage. The punters were the MVPs of the game, and the fans were the losers. Geno Smith, nothing. Caleb, nothing. No touchdowns, just more sacks, contributing to his league-leading totals already. Only people I think may have been happy. Last year, it wasn't that much better. Thursday night football games averaged under 20 points. That's terrible. We had another huge punting matchup. Nothing can really save the injuries and lessen the recovery time, but one solution, we can start putting better matchups out there. If the NFL does start playing games on Saturday, that could lead to an extra day of rest for teams playing on a Thursday, but the whole system's off. I bet it won't be long though until we have football on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. The ad buys are just too tempting for the league to resist. Even the strategies, the gameplay, the mistakes, it all seems to be worse. And then when we look past that and we look at these matchups, it constrains. We start to see that it's diminishing even more. Primary weakness of the Thursday night football schedule is player fatigue, injury risk, and short recovery windows. This leads to subpar performances. And then when we add the lack of a marquee matchup, it just diminishes the appeal all the way. Take Thursday night football, it's like that terrible pizza place you just keep going back to because it's there, only thing open late at night, and it's got a good price. It's football, we love it, but that is not going to stop Twitter from blowing up every week with complaints because football is better than no football at all. We're stuck, folks. The NFL won't fix this. Bezos doesn't care, and we'll hate watch Thursday night every time. But At least we are in this misery together. So grab your beer, grab your popcorn, prepare for the punts, and let's all tweet through the fun. Next up at number 5, it is the bald beauty Brock Bowers, giving the Raiders fans something to cheer for, is putting up rookie numbers that just don't set the bar for tight ends. He's setting the bar for receivers. He's got 108 receptions, 1,144 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns. He's truly redefining what's possible for a rookie in the position in year 1. Not since Gronk have we really had a tight end with this kind of shine. And honestly, I'm not sure if it's the way he plays or the shine off his dome, but my guy is absolutely radiant out there. Bowers shattered the legendary Mike Ditka's 63-year-old record for receiving, stood at 1,076 yards, although he did it on only 56 catches, and it was a record some thought would never fall. But not only did Bowers break that, he broke Puka Nacua's rookie receptions record of 105, which was only done last year, cementing itself as one of the greatest rookie tight end seasons of all time. The numbers speak for themselves, but if you've been watching this guy, you know this kid's been different all season. No matter what shit slinger they have under center, he's been legit. Raiders fans can hold on to this bald beacon of hope because everything around him is chaos. He's their best player. He's a fan favorite. He's gonna have to carry the load. It's not an ideal situation, but he's thriving. His athleticism, his hands, his route running, he is a matchup nightmare. Linebackers too slow, safeties too small, defenses too confused. Fantasy managers take note. This guy's already tight end 1, and we know in 2025 he's going to be the first guy off the board and possibly for the next decade. If you're in a keeper league, take note. Last year, the Raiders sucked. They had Josh McDaniels. He was booted after a 3-5 record. Linebacker coach Antonio Pierce stepped in. The players seemed to like him, but that doesn't matter. The NFL is about winning. And although they were kind of middle of the pack last year, they have been crap this year. The carousel at quarterback has not been good. They lost Devontae Adams. Max Crosby is still here, but it does look like he wants his way out too. Raiders won't be in the playoffs this year. They got no quarterback solution. They're in a tough spot. Interim coach Pierce will see if he can hold on to his job. Even with Bowers and his 100 and 1,000, it's a tough situation. Despite Bowers' brilliance, was one-dimensional. If they weren't throwing it to him, they couldn't do anything else. There were a few games they looked okay, but for the most part, it was a bad situation. Again, the quarterback is a big issue. Whether it was Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, or someone else, that's not going to cut it in the NFL. And my take, until Deion Sanders drops Shedeur off at those Vegas doors, or Cam Ward comes a call-in, that Raiders offense has Bowers, that's about it. And that is not where any NFL team wants to be. Although, it could be worse. You could not have anyone. So for now, let's hope they don't waste this talent like they've done so many before him. He's the kind of tight end you can really build a team around, and that's hard to do. They can get their act together, perhaps get some draft picks in this, perhaps get some pieces in this next draft, a couple free agents. We'll see. I don't think the future looks very good for the Las Vegas Raiders. Coming in at number 6 on the list, we have Saquon Barkley and Philadelphia rushing towards immortality. In the offseason, the Eagles decided to beef up their defense and pair it with what was a good offense. But the real coup, now that we look back on it, was signing Saquon Barkley. He's turned the backfield into a playground. The last non-quarterback to snag an MVP? Adrian Peterson back in 2012. In Barkley's 24 season, he's making a strong bid to break that quarterback monopoly. Barkley's not just resurrected his career, my man's put it on rocket boosters. He has over 2,000 yards rushing, and he's not just leading the NFL, he is about to break history. He needs 101 more yards to shatter Eric Dickerson's single-season rushing record set in 1984, 40 years ago. We haven't seen this kind of rushing in the NFL, I think, since 1984. But here's the kicker. The Eagles have locked up the NFC East, and they may be treating this last game with the Giants like a bye week. I would. Why risk an injury to Barkley when you have glory to chase? Will they put him in? Will they play it safe? We won't know till a couple more days as we head into the weekend. I think he's going to be on the bench. It would be stupid to have him in the game. So sadly, I think Barkley will sit at 2,000 yards. When we look at his stats through the year, it's amazing. 2,005 yards on 345 carries. My man was averaging almost 6 yards a carry. His highlight reel is a greatest hits album. Week 12, he made the Rams defense look silly. 255 yards, including 2 70-yard touchdowns. One play saw him execute a reverse hurdle spin move. You could not even replicate it on Madden. I tried. Philadelphia's offensive line with Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, they've been the unsung hero. Without them, Barkley wouldn't have the holes to drive through. The Eagles lead the league in rushing attempts at 528. They lead the league in rushing yards per game at 187. They've turned this offense into a veritable steamroll. And when Barkley goes over 100 yards rushing in a game, the Eagles are 12-1. This shows how crucial it is to their success. When you can run, you can pass. When you can pass, you can run. Last year in the regular season, Barkley was with the Giants. He almost had 1,000 yards. There were some injuries. The team wasn't very good. 2012, he had a big year, 1,400 yards. It gave the Giants hope. Everyone thought the old Saquon was back, only for us to watch in Hard Knocks the Giant front office discussing letting him go. Good thing they gave Daniel Jones $160 million. I wonder where he's at now. With Barkley, the Eagles, they're not playoff contenders. I think they're Super Bowl hopefuls. Any team that can rush the ball and has a good defense has a good chance to win. His ability to control the game clock, wear down the defense, his presence, it allows Jalen the room to shine. A balanced attack. There are some weaknesses. The defense has struggled sometimes. A lot of the focus too has been on the coaching, the scheme, whether Nick Sirianni knows what the he's doing out there. It's hard to say sometimes. He looks like an idiot when he's yelling and doing wild things. They've been criticized for being predictable, no innovation. So I'm curious to see where they'll land in the playoffs and if more criticism will land on Nick Sirianni if they're out pretty quickly. Same with Jalen Hurts. If he doesn't play well, and there has been games where he has been passing like crap. And he was pissed off about it too. When he had a good game after a few bad, he came to that podium. Y'all ready? Did you like what you saw? So he knows that if he's not throwing well, it hurts the run. We'll see the impact of new offensive coordinator Kellen Moore. Injuries, always unpredictable, whether that's Saquon, A.J. Brown went down, Jalen had a concussion, Lane Johnson earlier in the season, Devontae Smith, he is one big hit away from joining Antonio Brown on CTE ESPN. So there's a lot that can happen, and the turnovers. As with any team in any game, if you're minus, not good. If you are a positive turnover margin, usually it means good things. I don't think Barkley's going to take home the MVP. I believe that's going to go to Lamar Jackson, and rightly so. But as Eagles offensive lineman Landon Dickerson summed up, when you have a guy like Saquon behind you, it makes you want to bury every defender in front of you. He is that special. Even Barkley himself. I've always believed in my ability. And Philly believed in me, and now we're showing what this offense can do. I think the days of treating running backs like interchangeable parts are a little bit over. After the success of Gibbs, Bijan, and now we're seeing the comeback of Henry, Saquon's having a huge year for the Eagles, Kyron Williams down in LA, rushing has made a comeback. For the Eagles, Barkley isn't just an MVP candidate. He's the engine that drives their championship hopes. Behind Jalen Hurts, there's no one more important on this team, if you ask me, heading into the playoffs in January. Number 7, Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns. The Browns. Another season that left the dog pound scratching their heads in disbelief. They limped their way to a 3-win record and a bevy of failed expectations. As owner Jimmy Haslam put it to ESPN, I think we have a lot of needs as a team. We went from 11-6, making the playoffs, to 3-10. So it's a little perplexing exactly what happened. Well, Jimmy, I'll tell you what happened. You signed a toasted QB to a $230 million guaranteed contract. Deshaun Watson, once hailed as the savior of Cleveland, has instead become the laughingstock of the NFL. After a disastrous season, the Browns have had no choice but to restructure his contract. After injuries, lackluster performances, and a crippling cap hit, Stefanski and GM Andrew Berry are in a spiral of despair. Please, someone check on these men. I know they need therapy, and at least they need a stiff drink. But let's talk about numbers. Watson's biggest numbers in Cleveland, 230 and 24. That's not touchdowns and yards. That's lawsuits and dollars. And sure, those may be rookie numbers compared to Diddy. The Browns still have to go into this offseason asking, is Watson our starter? In an attempt to salvage some dignity from this debacle, the Browns brought in Jerry Jeudy to boost the receiving corps. They re-signed Zadarius Smith, who is sadly later shipped off to contender Detroit. But let's be real here. That's like putting a band-aid on a broken leg. And speaking of broken legs, we have Nick Chubb, whose series of devastating injuries seem to have finally spelled the end of his time in Cleveland. A broken foot was the last blow to this promising tenure. We'll have to see where he lands next season. I hope he does rest up and he gets healthy. Meanwhile, this season, Jameis Winston, the Browns' backup quarterback at points, who always provides unintentional comedy with his turnovers and his wild takes. I swear I will never forget in Tampa, prior to the game, when he told his teammates, sometimes you have to whip it out and show them how big you are. I don't know if that was OnlyFans or an NFL speech, but my man is built different. He had an amazing game in Denver this year, 500 yards, competing with rookie Bo Nix, 330 yards against Baltimore in a win. But his inconsistent play and those friggin' turnovers are always going to lead Jameis back to the pine. Now back to the contract restructure. It didn't reduce the pay. It didn't change the salary. It spreads the financial burden over a longer period. They still owe Watson $92 million guaranteed. The cap hit remains huge. But by restructuring, they've kicked the can 2027. His performances have went between mediocre and outright disastrous. Watching him play this season, I just didn't see any life in the arm. All the throws looked dead. Even in his eyes, it didn't look like he really wanted to be there sometimes. He had a 58% completion rate, 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. His QBR was dismal, 23.3, the lowest of his career. That's coming off a terrible season last year. His failure to rise to the occasion in Cleveland has cemented the reputation of this being the most egregious contract in history. Crunch time, when it counts, Watson has been tugging the Browns in every direction but a win. Heck, they're now even talking about signing Kirk Cousins, who lost his job in Atlanta to Michael Penix. There will be no happy endings here, friends, in Cleveland. Last year in the regular season, Deshaun Watson played 6 games, 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, almost like this year, 61% completion rate. With Watson out, they did turn to rookie Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He came in this year as well. But it was more Joe Flacco, 38-year-old Joe Flacco. And he did well at times, a couple 300-yard games, 11 TDs. And it did create a conversation. If Deshaun plays well, maybe he could do the things Flacco is doing, but do them better. They made the playoffs. However, they were quickly knocked out in the wild card. As we roll into 2025, the Browns are certainly at a crossroads, definitely at quarterback, a situation more turbulent than Lake Erie. His performance underwhelming to say the least. Restructured deal. It looks like this mess will be back in Cleveland next year to compete with whoever they sign or draft. The same source about Cousins said the team is going to look for any veteran with starter's talent, and the working theory in NFL circles is the team will attempt to hold a competition for the starting job. My God, this gong show. I hope you're looking for someone with starter's talent, because it doesn't look like you have it on the team. Besides Cousins, they may have to look in the draft. We saw Daniel Jones last year get released, but he did sign with Minnesota. The defense, which has been a beacon of hope through these years, also went downhill. Myles Garrett, all-pro, amazing. He has a place in the NFL's elite all-time defensive ends, but that simply hasn't been enough. The rest of the defense needs attention after taking a heavy step back in 2025. Last year, they led the league in most defensive outputs. It's what pretty much allowed them to make the playoffs, and this season, they've crumbled, they've conformed to the crappiness of the rest of the team. Losing 34-13 to Washington and rookie Jaden Daniels, losing both divisional games to Cincy, heck, they even lost to the lowly Giants. It's amazing they beat Baltimore and Pittsburgh. They rank near the bottom of the league in points allowed and sit at 17th in the league in yards against a game at 336. They struggled against the run. Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard all crossing the century mark in losses. Opposing backs having over a 5-yard a carry average. When you can't stop the run, it creates gaps in the secondary. Then the defense will start throwing 6, 7, 8 guys low in the box, and good QBs will find the holes in the gaps all day. It's a challenge as old as the NFL. My take, Cleveland is in between a rock and a hard spot. They will hold on to Deshaun at least one more season, unless he completely shits the bed at the beginning of next season and they cut him. I think we'll be looking at a QB competition. Browns fans and NFL fans deserved better than this. Looking to the draft, looking to free agency for hope. Draft weapons, pick a QB, shore up the defense, something completely different. Here's the truth. Cleveland's problems, they go much deeper than Watson, and we've seen that year after year. In 2023, the Browns had an identity. Defense, smash mouth football. They beat teams up. They pressured QBs. They made big plays when it counted. All of this has vanished in 2024. The team's physicality is gone. Their defensive dominance, a distant memory. Cleveland has lost its way, and unless major changes are made, it is hard to see any path forward that doesn't involve more heartbreak for the dog pound. Let's hope, my friends, they can whip out some big wins in 2025. Alright, number 8 on our list. Wasted talent, squandered potential, defensive debacles, the Cincinnati Bengals and the San Francisco 49ers. Joe Burrow has the Bengals offense rolling like a freight train, breaking records left and right. This season, Burrow 4,641 yards, 42 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, completion percentage nearing 70%. He now holds the mark for the most consecutive games with 2 touchdown passes. He is even getting there with 3 touchdown passes. Screaming consistency. Fan favorite Dan Orlovsky chimed in. No one's throwing the football better than Joe. They have the best offense in the NFL, and this is one of the best quarterback seasons we have ever seen. But here's the problem. Cincinnati's defense has turned into Swiss cheese. It's costing them. What started as a season full of promise has unraveled into a scramble just to clinch a wild card spot. Burrow has lost 7 games where he performed like a god, including games against the Ravens, the Browns, the Steelers. Games with 430 yards, 4 touchdowns, 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, 356 yards, 3 touchdowns, all losses. It's truly amazing. It's truly difficult to lose with those types of Herculean efforts. It all started in week 1, where blonde hair, slim Burrow, and the Bengals somehow lost to the lowly Patriots. My goodness, 23-17 in a game where Burrow threw for 300 yards, but also had 2 picks. This kind of got the hopes raised for those New England fans as well, and we all saw that went downhill fast. Things got worse for the Bengals. They lost 4-5 to begin the season, another 4-5 midway in the season. Pass defense has been particularly bad, with players like Cam Taylor-Britt struggling to cover the top receivers on the other teams. Injuries to Turner, Dax Hill. The scheme under defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo has not adapted well to the offenses we've seen this year in the league. They have the 6th most yards against, the 4th most points against at 26.1. It's really sad to see another year of Burrow, of Chase, of Higgins go down the drain. Down on the West Coast, it's not much better. The San Francisco 49ers, they kicked off 2024 with dreams of glory, but what we've all witnessed is a classic case of a roller coaster ride downhill. Brock Purdy, the darling of the NFL last year, last pick of the draft, he's wrapping up this season with 3,800 yards, 25 TDs, 12 interceptions, a 96.1 passer rating. On the ground, he's added about another 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, so it's showing not a terrible season. However, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Against the Kansas City Chiefs in Week 7, Purdy's stats were more like a horror movie than a highlight reel. 200 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, lost 28-18. Another Week 15 debacle against the Rams, 142 passing yards, no touchdowns, and interception. They lost 12-6. These games paint a stark contrast to what we remember the San Francisco 49ers as. How even the brightest stars can flicker when things start to get tough. Last year, the Bengals season was up and down as well. Burrow, the Bengals golden boy, he took an unplanned vacation with a wrist injury, and with Burrow out for the count, they had to turn to Jake Browning, which, is kind of like expecting your cat to suddenly turn into a guard dog. You appreciate the effort. No one was expecting miracles, and Browning did his best to keep the ship from sinking. But his performance was more weekend warrior than NFL savior, I would say. They managed to wobble to a 9-8 record, the equivalent of a participation trophy for the best teams. But the playoffs, no, those were for other teams. After getting schooled by the Chiefs in Week 17, the Bengals' hopes were dashed and they went home as Kansas City went on to become champions. San Francisco last year rolled in as big shots, the cool kids, all the toys. Purdy, who was once dubbed Mr. Irrelevant in the draft, went from fairy tale to fable. Master, you can say what the fuck happened. The Niners offense was like watching a comedian bomb on stage. All potential, no punchline. Instead of popping champagne, the 49ers fans were left sipping on their tears, wondering how they could go from MVP to MIA in the biggest game of the year. The Bengals do still have a slim chance at the playoffs, needing a win and some help from other teams. However, their defense will need to find form. T. Higgins has had a nice year, 858 yards, 10 touchdowns, likely increasing his value in free agency. Jamar Chase under contract through 2025, but the Bengals may have to look at extending him. 117 catches, 1,600 yards, 16 touchdowns. I know he said he wanted a penny more than Justin Jefferson's contract, but if he continues to play this way, he'll be asking for a lot more than that. As for the 49ers, they're out of playoff contention and will be eyeing the draft, free agency, potentially looking to bolster both the offensive line and the secondary. Looking at their offseason and some things that they need to do, I think it begins with some serious soul searching, or at the very least some serious roster searching. First on the list, they got to figure out, is Brock Purdy the guy? I believe they think he is, so we'll be seeing him for quite a few more years. The offensive line, they need to shore that up. Then there's the defense, which last year was about as effective as a screen door on a submarine. They need to plug those holes. And let's not forget about special teams. Where they were once so special, they forgot how to be a team. I expect the 49ers to be busy. I expect them to make some moves. I expect them perhaps to even make a few surprise cuts. They also had a whole lot of injuries when it came to the 49ers as well. Dre Greenlaw, linebacker, heart and soul of the defense. He finally came back from that brutal Achilles tear. But just when we thought he was going to be a superhero, bam, he's out. Soreness hit him like a ton of bricks. 34 snaps. He's back on the bench for the rest of the season. Javon Hargrave, another key player who was supposed to be the anchor of the defensive line. Nope, he goes down with a tricep injury. And poof, his season's over too. Suddenly, we're scrambling to fill big shoes on the line, big shoes in the secondary. The defense just isn't the same. And add to that some sideline drama. Devondre Campbell, the guy straight up refused to go in the game when Greenlaw was out. Like, dude, what are you doing? That led to a suspension and packing his bags from the team. At some points, it felt like watching a soap opera on the field, and you could see it in the eyes of the players, of the coaches. So I'm real curious to see where San Francisco lands next year. Pass defense was straight up embarrassing at times for a team with their reputation, ranking 9th worst in the league. Jake Moody, the man had moments where he literally lost game for the Niners. Against the Rams, could have tied it. He made 23 out of 31 field goals, which had many fans and analysts calling him an all-time bust. When key players went down, there just wasn't many options stepping up. So yeah, the 24-25 season for the 49ers, it was a reality check. If they want to get back to being the kings of the NFL, they got serious work to do. The Bengals also had a chance to be serious contenders, but it turned into a season of what could have been. Joe Burrow lighting up scoreboards, record year, but the defense was practically rolling out red carpets for the opposition. You had injuries, the offensive line took a hit. This left Burrow more exposed than he deserved given his performance. And then there were the injuries to key players. Dax Hill out with an ACL injury. DJ Turner with a broken clavicle. Add Charlie Jones to the mix. He missed time with a groin injury. And you got a team playing with one hand tied behind their back. In essence, while Burrow was throwing down, the defense was throwing up its hands. They need to focus on reinforcement, recovery, re-strategizing if they're going to flip the script from a season of missed opportunities to one where they're back in playoff contention. In the end, it's two teams and two wasted opportunities. Bengals, the 49ers, both Super Bowl darlings, now serve as a cautionary tale how quickly things can turn in the NFL, even with an MVP like Joe Burrow, and the 49ers possessing an MVP roster. These teams have squandered their chances. The 49ers already out of the playoffs, the Bengals probably soon to be. The potential's there, but the execution, it's been severely lacking. For the Bengals, despite Burrow's exceptional season, they're probably going to be going to the golf course again. And if these shortcomings keep happening over and over and over and over, Burrow might start to get disheartened with these coaches, with the GM, with the whole vibe that's happening on the Bengals sideline. For the 49ers, pretty stats, they were okay, but his performance in critical moments was disappointing. He just didn't have that it factor. You add in those missed field goals, costly game management mistakes, and you have to wonder where this team is headed for next season and with head coach Kyle Shanahan. It does seem, of course, his job's safe, but I think people are going to start asking questions about if this guy truly knows what he's doing, or did he just look amazing when he had Pro Bowlers at every weapon spot on the offense? Time will tell. I think the Bengals and San Fran will both be back in playoff contention next year. They'll get these problems sorted out. 10, 11, 12 or more wins. Next on our list, we have Tom Brady, announcer or owner. Tom Brady is the GOAT of playing football, but broadcasting, let's just say he's still trying to find the end zone. 7-time Super Bowl champ stepped into the Fox broadcast booth this season, and the results have been, well, let's just say, entertainingly challenged. Brady made headlines, but not for the reasons one might expect coming into the season. He had quite a few awkward moments. One, when he claimed Lamar both threw and caught a ball. It's okay, Tom, we all misspeak sometimes, just not in front of millions of people, and most of which don't like you. The commentary hasn't been the only thing people are talking about, though. Have you seen Tom Brady's face lately? He is looking smooth. Homie's looking more and more like a Ken doll by the day. Plastic surgery rumors are swirling like leaves in New England, with fans pointing out his iconic rugged looks are slowly morphing into something a woman might swipe right on. Plastic surgeon even weighed in, suggesting Botox, fillers, hair treatments, perhaps are all behind Brady's youthful glow. We tried, but Brady's reps haven't commented. Let's be real. The man is 47, he does look like he's auditioning for The Young and the Restless, and he is just enjoying his retirement. Let's hope, though, he doesn't turn into one of those alien-looking fellas. Now let's talk about that $375 10-year deal with Fox. It's like they paid him like he was still out there winning Super Bowl rings. Now here's the kicker. As a minority owner in Las Vegas, Brady's got more restrictions than a freshman at a frat party. Can't criticize officials, can't criticize teams, can't attend production meetings, can't even step foot in the other team's facilities except during games. Fox did sign the GOAT, but he's playing with one hand tied behind his back, or rather, one microphone muted. Last year, Brady was not in the booth, he was out of the booth, practicing his skills. We're still waiting to see that translate over. His transition was highly anticipated. It's been so far met with mixed reviews, and that is to put it diplomatically. Brady does have such a long contract, there is lots of time for him to improve. He can navigate these unique broadcasting restrictions. He might be able to turn into an insightful analyst that we're all hoping for. Until then, we'll keep watching the evolution of his facial features and his commentary skills. It's quite apparent his lack of access to the traditional preparation methods we see a lot of other announcers use as the production meetings and heading into the team facilities is quite limiting his depth of analysis. His connection to Raiders fans and the organization as a whole also starts to put question marks on his impartiality and his commentary towards those teams they'll be playing. Let's not forget, this is Tom Brady. There will be a lot of eyes watching him. There's one thing we all can learn from this. It's that Tom Brady is not the best at everything. He has a ton of room to grow here. Between these awkward touchdown analysis, the suspiciously smooth face, Brady's first season in the booth has been a little bit of a roller coaster, but he does have 10 years and $375 million to figure it out. If nothing else, we will have the memes, whether he is flubbing a play or breaking the internet. Brady does remain undefeated at staying in the spotlight. Maybe by next year, his play calling will be as smooth as his face is now. Until then, let's enjoy the ride, because whether he's misnaming a player or showcasing his new look, it is nice to have Brady on television. Hope next season he can bring some more of that inside look on the offense and the defense that we were hoping for, because it wasn't there this year. Coming in last, but certainly not least, number 10, Baker Mayfield and the Bucs, a Pirates bounty. In the offseason, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers decided to pivot from the Tom Brady Super Bowl winning era, placing their faith in Baker Mayfield, hoping he could inject new life into the offense. Mayfield, who Cleveland certainly didn't believe in a few years ago, has not only found a new home, but he's turned the Bucs offense into a spectacle. Now we can look at where Cleveland is floundering, while Mayfield is thriving down in Tampa. Mayfield had a season for the ages, leading the NFL in several quarterback categories. His stats were eye-popping. Almost 4,500 yards, over 40 touchdowns, only 10 interceptions, and a completion percentage over 70%. If it wasn't for amazing, outstanding seasons from Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and others, we could maybe be talking about Mayfield in the MVP discussion. Of course, the Buccaneers probably would have had to play better as well. One of the standout performances came in Week 17 against the Panthers. Mayfield threw for 425 yards, 5 touchdowns, put on a clinic that had fans and analysts alike raving about his revitalized play. His chemistry with Mike Evans has been magical. Evans has continued his streak of 1,000-yard seasons, now at 11, second all time. And this portion of the video is a little bit later, so we did see the last game of the year where Tampa did put the game on the line to get Mike Evans his bonus and his yards. All's well that ends well, but that could have been a disaster. Tampa's offensive line with players like Tristan Wirfs has given Mayfield the time he needs, but it is not about protection only. It's about execution. Mayfield's mind and his intelligence was on full display when he joined the Rams on just 48 hours notice, leading them to a last-minute touchdown drive to win the game on Thursday Night Football. Maybe one of the few good Thursday Night Football games, although all that action came in the last few minutes. His ability to make plays under pressure and his decision making have been crucial. There have been some bad interceptions, but some of the scrambles he's made have been incredible. For his size and his speed, he is getting a lot of yards. They've averaged 267 passing yards a game, turning their offense more into a high-flying unit. And when Baker throws over 300 yards, Tampa's undefeated, highlighting his central role in their success. Last year in the regular season, Mayfield was a journeyman. He was playing for the Panthers, the Rams, average stats. He was trying to make his way back to a team that would believe in him, could give him a shot, try to find a team that didn't have too much in the way. And he found that in Tampa. Heading into next year, I think we have a good match. I could see Mayfield getting a huge contract from the Bucs, and I could see him staying there for a long time. If the turnovers keep happening and there's a couple bad seasons, we could be right back on the bad Baker Mayfield train. Turnovers do lose games. The interceptions weren't crazy bad this season, but it is something to keep an eye on as we head into 2025. But Baker has been getting better year after year after year. So maybe next year he takes another leap and he can turn those turnovers down. 4,000 plus yards, 40 touchdowns, limited turnovers. That's a franchise quarterback that you are going to keep, you're going to look after, and you're going to make sure they get paid. All in all, the Bucs, Baker, they had a great year. As a fan, if you're a fan of Tampa, you're excited. You're excited for the future. I hope to see they add some more parts this season. Bucky Irving was incredible. I'm really excited to see him in year 2, who they pick up in the draft, who they pick up in the free agents. Tampa is definitely a team I have my eye on. After everything Baker has went through, it's really nice to see him on this side. The Bucs as a whole, they definitely had their defensive inconsistencies. When Baker was on and they were flying, they were great. The team was really quite odd. You'd have one week they played great, they beat a good team, and then the next week they played like absolute garbage. They have to find that middle ground. They have to stay consistent if they want to be a serious playoff contender. New offensive offensive coordinator Liam Cohen took over from Dave Canales, there was a period of adjustment, but the offense does look promising. There's been games where the play calling has seemed a little less than optimal, leading to some unpredictability in the game plans, but hopefully they do iron that out next year. As I mentioned already, we have that turnover margin. Buccaneers did have issues with negative turnover margin. That's critical in close games. They have Bucky. They can run the ball. You stop those turnovers, you're going to get a couple W's. Baker may not be that huge name just yet, Burrows and Herbert and beyond, but I think one more good year and he's going to be right there. His career as of yet is really the stuff of sports movies. The only unexceptional part, apparently there are some issues with his dad and his brother. Stealing some of his money. They didn't wait for that second Bucks contract. It is a little bit of a soap opera. I hope that doesn't affect his play on the field, or I hope it doesn't affect his family. We only have one. In the end, as offensive lineman Tristan Wirfs put it, Baker has that dog in him. He makes you want to block for him all day, with Mayfield himself even saying, Tampa believed in me when I needed it the most. And now we're showing what this team is capable of. He's not just leading the Bucks to wins, getting good stats. He's redefining his career. And at this point in his career, that's a huge thing. If he keeps up this pace, Tampa may just be planning another parade, and this one minus Tom Brady. And lastly, we have our honorable mentions. I was going to have a section, the sophomores and the rookies, but I'm actually going to make a whole video on that. Puka Nacua, Jackson Smith, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison. Puka, after an amazing rookie year, breaking records with 105 receptions, 1,486 yards. He did slow down a little bit this year. He had some injuries. Jackson Smith, he was looking amazing, getting a lot of grabs, and then he had an awfully slow last few games of the year. It seemed like Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf started to step up more into that WR1 role. And Jackson kind of started falling behind, which is really perplexing because he was having a strong season. Zay Flowers was looking good in Baltimore, of course, helped by the amazing rushing attack of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. He was finding a lot of open field out there. Sadly, he did go down with a knee injury. Head coach Harbaugh is saying it isn't serious, but it did look pretty bad. I wouldn't be surprised if it was more than a sprain. We'll see if he can come back in the playoffs. Jordan Addison wasn't as consistent, certainly didn't catch as many touchdowns. And I mean, that was with Justin Jefferson in the mix entirely this year. We'll see if Justin Jefferson ever goes on a world tour and leaves Minnesota, if Jordan Addison can step into that in that receiver one role. For now, it's a great 1-2 punch in the NFL. Last year, we had a couple rookie quarterbacks, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson. CJ has looked like he's taken a step back this year from 4,000 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. All those stats have got worse. Less yards, less touchdowns, more picks. Has fans wondering if he really is that next Patrick Mahomes that he looked like last year. Bryce Young, terrible rookie season, terrible start to this year, was on the bench, came back in, played a few decent games, but as a whole, he really just does not look like he has it. Looks like a string bean out there. I understand being a little bit small, but there is no reason that man can't get into the weight room and put a little meat on the bone. It's just a matter of time before he gets hurt. As I mentioned earlier in the video, most times you can do a good job protecting yourself, but when you run into that 4th down or that go-ahead touchdown or the game-tying touchdown and you have to go for it, with a body his frail, one big hit and he's going to be out a long time, and I certainly don't want to see anyone hurt. Bryce Young, he's got a lot of work to do on the field, off the field. Time's going to start running out on this cat. I give him another year next year before Carolina cuts him. Bo Nix in Denver, awesome. Gonna have a full video on it. Really impressed with his play out there. They're heading into the playoffs. Him and Sean Payton, that could be a fantastic marriage that will be creating wins, creating touchdowns for a long time in the NFL. Really exciting. Anthony Richardson, I mean, what is it? Next year, we're going to be looking at season 4. How long can we keep saying he needs to mature? I think the Colts made a terrible, terrible mistake this season. Putting him on the bench, putting Flacco in, trying to pick up wins to make the playoffs. And now at the end of the year, you're not in the playoffs. You don't know what you have with Anthony Richardson. It's just a terrible projection for Indianapolis moving forward. Jonathan Taylor is another year older. Pittman didn't look great this year. It was more Alec Pierce going over the top. But coming back to Anthony Richardson, his play was terrible. I didn't watch all of the games in entirety, but I did watch a lot of Colts action, and he would make these incredible throws way down the field and then miss the easy one or throw a pick. And we can't not mention when he took a play off for being tired. There are a lot of questions, and this season, you got the answers to none of them. This year in the NFL, we had Drake May, Caleb Williams, Bo Nix with Denver, as mentioned, a couple injuries in Minnesota with JJ McCarthy. Drake May, he's looked pretty strong for New England. Again, not a lot of game tape out there and a terrible team to get a proper projection. But compared to going in the season when he had those wild throws out of bounds, was making a lot of inconsistent plays, not very shoddy footwork. If you go and watch the video now, he has cleaned a lot of that up. And a lot of the footwork he uses sometimes looks a little sloppy, but it gets the job done. And he is not afraid to step in the pocket. It's not like Bryce Young, where he looks like he's running for his life. New England has just as bad of an old line, and yet he's sticking through it, making some incredible throws. I mean, I think New England had the longest touchdown throw they've had in 3-4 years with Drake May. So exciting stuff. It was unacceptable the last game of the year, not lose and get your first pick of the draft. You could have traded that into another first round pick next year, which is desperately needed with a bottom of the league team. But now they're sitting at 4th, and it looks like they'll be picking between an O-lineman and perhaps a big take. Caleb Williams in Chicago, another quarterback and another series of questions. He had some games where he played well, and he had some games where he just played terrible. He did keep the turnovers down, but he was scrambling a lot in the pocket, and this is kind of an issue with Bryce Young as well. When the old line is so terrible, you start feeling it. As soon as you snap the ball, there's guys coming at you. Instead of stepping up into the pocket, they're stepping out of the pocket. With Caleb in college, he could extend the play 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds and still make the throw for a first down, for a touchdown. In the NFL, that's just not happening. A lot of the times, he's looking a little silly out there when he's running around. Jaden Daniels, of all of them, looks the best. He looks fantastic out there. As I mentioned in my video earlier, like with Bryce Young, I am worried about his size. But when we look at Washington, we look at the Redskins, over 4,000 yards, over 30 total touchdowns, only 7 interceptions. This kid is the real deal. I watched most of the games. There was a little bit of an inconsistent patch in the middle there, and it was helped by some bad play from the teams they went against. Philly, Jalen Hurts went down early in the game. I feel like they would have been blown out that game. We had the Hail Mary against Chicago. I'm not going to go out there and throw this as a solid opinion, but I wouldn't be surprised Washington takes a step back next year. But we'll see the sophomore season from Jaden. As with all young players, though, they will have a lot of opportunity to grow, to get better. Most times in life, if you continue to work hard and you add that to the skill you have, you're going to do great. We can look at countless players that were not the best, had the resilience, had that work ethic, had the intelligence to overcome the hurdles that they came across and wound up on top of the mountain. We'll just give all the rookies a little room to grow, and we'll leave it there until our full video on our rookies and our sophomores. I barely mentioned all of them. There's so much more to that. It would have made the video another hour if I did that here. All right, and that is a wrap on some of the top NFL storylines from the 24-25 NFL season. Did I hit the nail on the head with some of them? Did I skip over your favorites? Sometimes did you say, what the heck? Drop your hottest takes, please, down in the comments. I will respond. We can have a great conversation. Please like, subscribe the video, hit hit that notification bell if you can. I will be dropping at least 1 or 2 videos a week. This is a new channel. The scripts, the work, the editing, the audio, again, because I'm new, it takes a lot of time, but I am going to give everything I have to you, the fans. You deserve quality videos. That's why I took a little while, and I know the audio isn't fantastic on this one, but I am getting better. I'll continue to try my best. Hope you please join me on the ride. I have at least 50 to 100 videos lined up. 20 to 30 scripts. Took me over a month to write. Now it's just to put them on YouTube. So I appreciate you so very much being here. I appreciate you if you made it through the video. Again, any of the small errors, I'm going to have them fixed. We're going to get better and better with every video. I hope you have a beautiful, wonderful day. You deserve it. Thank you. Gorilla Football.